There we go. So hopefully that'll, look good on the screen. I haven't figured out how to do those little thumbnails or anything yet. So anyway, good morning, guys. What was I talking about? Oh, well, let's start off with the thing that you brought up a few minutes ago, Doug. Chris, this was before you arrived, but Doug asked, I think, an extremely timely question where he said, oh, go ahead and word it the way you did, Douglas.
I think I said well, I heard the two terms, right? Information systems and information system security and information security, or information assurance, something like that. And right. I was wondering if one has to do with specifically, like information assurance has to do more specifically with the information itself or the data, and if information system security has to do with the devices that hold that data, the security of those devices.
Okay.
Is there the difference, or
I think that's a great question. Chris, do you want to try it, or do you want to let me?
I have the same question. So
okay. All right. Let's delve deeply into this a little bit because it is confusing, and the other confusing factor that will get to you when you are, like, for example, going into applying for a position, or when you are applying for a position or in an interview. There are certain things that will be pertinent and certain things that will not be pertinent, and you need to know the difference between them. Basically, the entire information systems security field, which let's just say that, information systems rather than physical, okay, this is information systems security, can be basically, and I'm using a lot of terms here, but it can be basically divided into two groups. One is what's known as security operations, or SecOps. That's where you see particular groups that have discovered vulnerabilities, or groups that have developed new cyber, let's say, intrusion detection systems or whatever. Those are like the point of the spear when it comes to information system security operations. In other words, the day-to-day operations that keep an information system secure. All right? So that gets all the way down to design, that gets down to shift scheduling, that gets down to your choice of the various software that you use, that gets down to training and client orientation, the whole 9 yards. That is all the day-to-day security operations, all right? That's SecOps. The other side is what's known as information assurance. And they sound so similar, but think about information assurance this way. Information assurance is compliance, it's legislation, it is designation of, for example, certain patches have to be applied by a certain period of time, or even deciding what patches need to be applied. So, it also involves the security audit function. And so when you're looking at those two, information assurance is not, let's just say if there's a breach, information assurance teams, if you will, are notified second. Security operations are notified first. because security operations is responsible for maintaining the day-to-day confidentiality, integrity, and what's the other one? CIA accuracy. No. What's the A of the CIA triad?
Availability.
Availability. Yeah, that's right. Availability. So if something gets compromised or you get a, let's say, and I've been in a number of Tiger teams where we're sitting down in the service desk, and all of a sudden I get a phone call or a text on my screen that says, need you up in SecOps now. You okay? Turn to the guys next door and say, I got to go. Go running upstairs, and they say, we've just had this issue, potential for this, looks like it may be this, we're trying to get information on it. That, for example, when we had WannaCry, I spent all day long in the Security Operations Center instead of down in the service desk where I belonged. The reason is that there was actually a breach, and some of the data for our organization was encrypted and was literally actively being encrypted while we were sitting there meeting about it. So that's when, a lot of stuff went on. We need you to go do this. We need you to go do this. I had somebody there from the mail system, had somebody there from Windows operations, had somebody there from the firewall team, etc. And they all started putting their stuff together and said, if this is occurring, what is it doing? What data is being affected? Who's being affected? And how do we, number one, slow it down, number two, stop it, and number three, reverse it? Okay, that's all security operations. That is what we today know of as cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. All right? Cybersecurity are the white hats. Now, information assurance are the people who, when everything's calm and cool, there are no current activities that are occurring within your organization or whatever. Those are the people that say, how do we make sure it stays this way? Okay? So when you think of cybersecurity, that is the romantic one. That's the guys that are out there with their Jedi lightsabers on, fighting against the bad guys. But information assurance also includes, for example, audits for how many people are reusing their passwords, or how many passwords are in use, how many people's accounts have bypassed multi-factor authentication, those sorts of things. Keeping the infrastructure safe so that security operations doesn't have to call a Tiger team because we've just been hacked. Does that make a little sense? A little bit? Doug?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I was just saying, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Okay, so think of it as security operations and information assurance. And information assurance is obviously the more, and I would say less romantic, more boring. But if information assurance truly does their job, then there will be fewer needs for security operations. See what I'm saying? So auditors, if you ever get a job, and we actually talked about this on a couple of our career discussions, and one of the articles that I found had basically said, if you want to get yourself a great job that's going to have upside potential in cybersecurity, get a job as an auditor, an information system auditor. And people are like, oh, why? That's so boring. Yes, but in order to be the auditor, they pointed out, you have to know everything about a particular information system. You have to know vulnerabilities, you have to know about human factors, you have to know about training levels of your clients, you have to know everything, what is being procured. You have to know about, for example, the Windows side, the Linux side. You have to know about network operations and network security itself. You know, you have to put that all together so you can ask those questions about it as an auditor. Also, if there are discussions at the C level, CIO, CISO, CEO, you know, about how are we going to incorporate cybersecurity operations or information assurance in our ongoing budgets, guess who is going to be in that meeting? The auditor, who can report on the overall status. How do you think things are? If you're just a, and you know, I'm generalizing here, but if you're just a firewall jockey, all you're concerned about is a firewall. You don't really care about the mail system. You don't really care about client training. All you care about is your firewall, you know, because that is something that if people are called to account, you're going to be called to account on how did this get through your firewall, you know? So from a security ops standpoint, yes, it's exceedingly valuable, but it is rarely a view for the entire organization. It's for your reaction capability, not how do you stop this stuff from occurring in the first place. See what I'm saying? Make sense?
Yes.
But it's a great question, and it confuses people a lot. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to. It reminded me of a quote that I saw, and I wanted to share with the group. When you just explained about this, and it just reminded me. So I'm gonna. It's too short. It's a guy named Bruce Schneier. He's a security researcher. He said, history has taught us never underestimate the amount of money, time, and effort someone will expend to thwart a security system. It's always better to assume the worst. Assume your adversaries are better than they are. Assume science and technology will soon be able to do things they cannot yet. Give yourself a margin for error. Give yourself more security than you need today. When the unexpected happens, you'll be glad you did.
I agree. But here's the challenge you run into, and we've talked about this from the very beginning. How do you maintain that better than needed cybersecurity posture without invoking higher than needed budgetary expenditures? In other words, in order to stay better than prepared, in other words, to be prepared for tomorrow, you've got to spend money today. So how do you justify that to your CEO and your CFO? You know, what do we need to do? Well, you know, it'd be good for us to do this. Okay, but that's an extra, you know, $100 million. What do we need to do today? You know, so that it's a constant discussion from a business risk standpoint. And possible future risk is a tough sell for the guys that are holding onto the purse strings and are, for example, accountable to the stockholders. It's just an ongoing discussion. You know? But that's a very, very good point. Yes, it's always important to be focused on what's over the horizon, but then you have to step into the halls where the money exists and try and pull some money out in order to achieve that goal that you're looking for, the goal of higher security.
Yeah. So I think a lot of things you have to do probably in addition to spending money, which will always be an issue. So you have to keep up, updated. You have to, well, first of all, of course, know your stuff and very well, inside and out, and then you have to keep up, looking at it as a student rather than an expert, and
right,
and also, implementing the things that have been shown to be, the usual things that will get you in trouble, like employee training,
right,
spending things like that, and also I think it's called threat hunting, which my understanding is that it's very, very deep, and also it's compared to spend test, it's less invasive. So you can do. There are a lot of things you can do, but it entails a lot of work, of course. But if you want to be safe, you have to do it.
Right. Here's one of the dilemmas, and then we're going to get into the management versus specialization, because I think this leads right into that. Right here now, we are discussing the information system security or cybersecurity career field very broadly. Very broadly. We're trying to incorporate the entire arena of information systems, risk, response systems, techniques, attack vectors, the mindset behind this, client training. We're trying to keep it all on a very, very general level so that we can give individuals such as yourself the best chance at acing your interview. All right? That's sort of where we're focused here. And I think we need to stay there, but the challenge we run into is that you're not going to walk in the door and be asked about all of those things simultaneously. You achieve that level of knowledge, and I mean expert level rather than novice level, which is where we're at. You achieve that expert level only by going through years of experience. You can't get that expert level watching YouTube videos, for example. Okay? So what we have to do here is keep things kind of generic, but we're literally thinking, if you want to think about it, at the same level as the CISO. When you get hired, however, you're going to get hired as this specialist. You're going to specialize in intrusion detection, or you're going to specialize in threat monitoring, or you're going to, etc. You are not. You're going to go from big picture down to an extremely small focused picture once you get hired, because nobody is going to ask for you, for example, to go into a room and say, "So, Douglas, what do you think about this?" You're not at that point yet. I'm not at that point yet, and I've been doing this for 20 plus years. So we have to weigh the difference and stay in the balance here so that you learn about the cybersecurity career field, but you are also preparing yourself for your first vocation. So we're talking at the CISO level, but a CISO will never consult with me and say, "So, Scotty, what do you think about this? What do you think we ought to do?" That conversation never has and never will take place. Because I'm a hobbyist. I am somebody who I think at the systems level. All right, that's I would consider be my main advantage in this career field. I think at the systems level. I don't think at the technology level. I don't think at the user level. I don't think at the level of a particular piece of software or an operating system or whatever. I can incorporate all of those into my thoughts. I have been, for example, in a Tiger team, and somebody says, well, we're doing this and this and this and this and this. And I said, what about this? Because I'm thinking about everything. And there have been times where I'll be in a meeting where we are discussing threat response or information systems posture, and I will bring up something, and this has occurred. The CISO or the ISSO has said, oh, yeah, we forgot about that. And that sort of shifts the posture a little bit or their focus a little bit, but by no means do I help shape the conversation. I'm the one who sits around and says, well, what about that door that's unlocked? You know, where they're talking the whole house, and I'm like, there's one door over here. That's my contribution to the overall aspects of information systems security. You know?
I see. Yeah.
Okay. So, great segue. Did anybody have anything before we go on?
Nothing from me.
Great. Thank you. This is a great segue into the discussion that I thought we should have about specialization versus management. The thing that prompted it was that I received this email over this week. Let me try and see if I can get this out of the way so everybody can see it. Well, let me bring it over here then. I got an email a couple days ago from somebody over at the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, which is a federal government agency, and they said, hey, we are actively recruiting for a Director of IT Portfolio Management position. Now, that sounds, you know, really cool, especially this part here. Oh, pays good money. And it's in Washington, D.C., full-time permanent employments. You know, it's blah, blah, blah. It's open to the public. That was one of the other things they came up with. So here is a federal recruiter going out and saying, we are actively trying to find people to apply for this director position. You know, sounds really cool. It really does. But here's the thing. I am not a portfolio manager, nor have I been a portfolio manager in the past. Yet here I am being recruited for a portfolio manager position. So the thing I wanted us to consider is, when you are growing within the information security field, and this is true almost everywhere, if you were into systems administration, if you're into email administration, if you're into network operations, if you're into streaming operations such as VoIP, etc., you are going to reach a point where you are going to probably make a decision. And that is, do I want to continue specializing, or do I want to move into management? Okay? And the reason I say that is, look at what I just received in the way of an active recruitment from somebody who's looking for a director position. Okay? I am a generalist. I do portfolio management, but I haven't done it for IT systems at the organization level. All right? I've done policy development. I've done records management. I've done performance measures. I've done enterprise architecture. I've done risk management and reporting, etc., etc., etc. I've done pieces of this, but I've never done them all together as one for an entire organization. So this is how they found me, because some of the things that they're looking for are some of the things that are in my resume. But I've never done them to this extent. So number one, this would be a great build for me. You know, it would be something wonderful to cap off my career. Also the fact that it pays, you know, up to and above $250,000 a year. Sounds like fun. The problem is that I'm not at this level. You know, this, just so you know, this 150 and above level is the area of what's known as the Senior Executive Service, or SES, appointments within the federal government. I think you two guys are familiar with that, but those who are listening may not know this. Anything above about 150, 155, 157, 159, or thereabouts is the area that's known as the Senior Executive Service. In other words, you have to present not only your entire portfolio, but you also have to present a financial portfolio that shows your, how do I say this? You are not a risk if they hire you. In other words, you have to show your 401k, you have to show your banking history, you have to show your investments to get this job. And last but not least, does anybody know how an SES, what level of appointment approval is necessary before you take an SES job as a permanent employee? Do either of you know about that?
I've heard
What do you mean
about
by? Oh, go ahead, Doc.
No. Well, I've heard about it. Yeah, you have to have, you know, in addition to a lot of experience. I think the group of SES who are in the same agency as you are, they get to say something about it. You know, they all have to be in agreement. So you know, if someone says no, I don't think it would be a good, you know, I think that might stop you from becoming one. That's, I don't know how true that is, but that's one of the things I've heard. Okay. The other one is, yeah, you have to be really knowledgeable. I mean, when you're talking about SES, you're talking about you know what you're doing. You got to know really well in a lot of areas. So it's not easy. It's the money, but it's also what it requires.
Okay. Chris.
I was going to ask you, Scotty, what do you mean by level approval?
Okay. All senior executive service appointments in the federal government have to be approved by Congress. Okay? Just so you know that. And it becomes part of the federal budget and has to be signed off by the president. So if you think about it, the same thing occurs in the military with all general officer assignments. All generals have to go through Congress, and Congress sees your name and has their opportunity to lean in and say, nah, I don't think this guy's such a good fit, or whatever. So if you've ticked off some senator from Iowa, you can best be assured that you know, the conversation is going to occur with your name in it, up there in the hallowed halls of government. Senior executive service and general officer appointments, what are known as flag officer appointments in the military, all go through Congress and all have to be signed by the president. So SES is not just another level of management to which you aspire. It literally gets into you have to file financial disclosure to make sure that you are not a risk to the federal government. So, go ahead.
Let me know if this is true.
Hello? Chris, are you still connected, or did I lock up?
I think I'm still connected. I think Doug has a sound issue. Doug, check your sound.
Yeah. I think
Doug's off. Yeah.
Anyway.
He was going to a good point. That's not good.
Well, I think the question you have to ask yourself is, am I at a level where I can help shape this, the future of this federal government agency?
It would take a different person to go after an SES like that, and that's a great question, Scotty.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's not just the technology part. You're dealing with funding. You're dealing with human resources. There's a whole thing about executive core qualities to meet, and I'm remembering this off the top of my head because I learned this in my leadership training in ETA. There's a whole bunch of things you have to tick the box in order for you to enter into an SES position, or even think about going into an SES position.
Right. Right. The thing that I've actually had numerous SESs suggest to me that I should apply for SES positions. So it's not like it's out of this world, but it requires a different mindset, if you will. So in conclusion, Doug's in charge of everything.
Yep. No, that's true. And we laugh, but that's true.
Yeah, it takes a different mindset, and you have to realize that you are being subjected to an increased level of scrutiny. It's no longer, for example, the CIO will not be the individual that you talk to get your job in information system security. In the federal government, it could be the assistant secretary or even the secretary of whatever federal department you are applying for. You know?
Hello. Can you hear me, Scotty?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Doug.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my battery, my computer ran out of juice, so.
Ah.
But I'm talking. I don't know if you can see me. Dialing in from my phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, I don't know which part of you are the. I was about to ask something, but I don't know if you already finished your what you were saying.
No, we're still talking about it.
Okay. No, what I was going to say is, I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard that once you're as an SES in the position, you're also at any moment the government can tell you, Scotty, you need to be here. You got to move to Iowa next week, and you got to do it or else.
Yes and no. Yes and no. That's the same with nearly every federal position, honestly. And this has occurred. For example, when the FBI was looking into their new headquarters, they were looking to move into Prince George's County, I think. I think that was what it was. And they basically told all of their employees, when and if we move, you're moving with us or you're not going to be in the FBI anymore, So those relocations typically do occur, but and again, this is something we have to remember for the federal government. I'm going to move this down here. There we go. Just so people can look at this. This individual manages CIO front office activities. You know, wow.
Three in the conference. The recording has started.
Okay, Doug, I hear you twice. Okay, there you go. There you go. Okay, anyway, I've lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
That's okay. Anyway, in the federal government, your movement, your salary, and the expectations of your job are based on the slot you inhabit, not you as a person and your personal skills. A lot of people don't think about that. A lot of people say, well, I'm a good XYZ, so you should pay me more. But in every case in the federal government, they are comparing you against the expectations of the position in which you are seated. And that's why, I mean, it's very important for us to consider, if you are looking for advancement within the federal government, it's extremely important for you to consider moving around and not staying in the same position. Douglas, I don't know if you want to share this, but it's totally up to you if you do or you don't. But is your position a flat rate GS position, or is it a upwardly mobile type position? Do you remember?
It was an upwardly moving position, but I got to the point where I cannot continue going up. So
okay.
And I already completed my cycle, so it's really time to move.
There you go. So
it's when you feel that,
Right, right. So a lot of people don't think about this because they keep saying, well, I'm good at this and whatever. The federal government manages by position, and they determine what positions are needed, what positions aren't, and what the pay level will be within each of those positions. So it really doesn't matter how good you are if you're in a position that only requires you to do XYZ at a certain level. That is the highest you're going to get paid, period, except for maybe cost of living increases or what's known as time in grade increases. So what you want to do, and we've got to get back to this management technician discussion. But from a federal government standpoint, you should be, even if you are hired in a position and happy, you should look for other positions. Always look for possibilities to improve and expand and go higher if that's what you want to do. So let's get back to the conversation of technical expert versus manager. And let me go back to this conversation. Yes, Doug, I saw your finger up.
I just wanted to add that a while ago, this was several years ago, I already had my degree, and I was going for a master's degree, and I wanted to get something into IT. But I honestly didn't like it very much because they were trying to, the program was more geared towards the management side of things, and I wanted to become more technical and know what I was doing. So I just left it.
And that is a conversation you need to have with yourself all the time. All the time. Is this a, I'm going to romanticize this. When people like Tom Cruise in Top Gun, what's the worst killer for his career? A desk job. Why? Because he likes flying Tomcats. If that's what gets your adrenaline pumping, you have to realize that you're going to get into an area where you are going to have fewer and fewer opportunities within your particular career field. For example, let's talk intrusion detection systems. In your federal government agency, there are probably going to be maybe 4 people who are responsible for purchase, installation, configuration, and ongoing operation and management of your department's, your federal department's intrusion detection system. Okay?
And 3 of those 4 people are contractors.
Well,
Joke
perhaps. Yeah. And, you know, why are they contractors? Because they can't find feds that'll do it. But your point is well taken. Here you go. If you're in the federal government, and wait a minute, I want to do that. Well, you're not a contractor. So do I want to be a contractor or a fed? You know, back and forth, back and forth. But here's the thing. I'm a PMP. I'm certified in Security Plus. I'm certified as a help desk manager. You know, I've got certifications for ITIL, etc. And you put that all together, and I am honestly more of a generalist than a specialist. I don't specialize because I enjoy thinking at the systems level. But in the long run, if they're looking for somebody to, for example, run their mail system, their email system and messaging system, that won't be me. Unified communications requires specialization that I don't have. But if they want somebody to manage the people who are in unified communications, that's where I fit. You know what I'm saying? So I actually transcend that because I have a systems focus. And therefore, positions like this that you see on my screen become available or even considered for people like me because, you know, people say, well, have you ever run an information assurance team? My answer is no. But I've hired 2 of them in the jobs that I've done as the program manager for an entire organization. In this case, National Defense University, and what was the other one? The President's Commission. I ran their information assurance along with their information operations teams. I didn't manage it. I hired them. So when people say, well, have you ever been an ISO? No, but I've hired ISOs. Okay? So when you want to get, you know, higher levels of pay, your specialization is going to get tighter and tighter and tighter to the point where there are fewer and fewer people doing it, and therefore your opportunities are going to become fewer and fewer if you wish to continue growing. The other thing you have to consider is that the tools within your particular specialty are going to keep changing. So you have to think about retraining so that you can retool and stay current on what's going on in your particular area of expertise. Intrusion detection systems are not staying the same. You know what I'm saying? So over time, you have to make that decision. Do I wish to stay in an area where I'm a, well, I'll give Tom Cruise as the example. F-14 Tomcats. That's what he flew. Sounds wonderful, but what happens when the F-14s are being moved out of service because they now have F-22s. You either learn to fly the F-22 or you take that dreaded desk job. And there's an old phrase that I don't particularly agree with, but it's worth discussing right now. The phrase is, those who can do, those who can't. Do you guys know the second part of that?
Don't.
No. Those who can do, those who can't teach.
Oh, okay.
You end up in the classroom teaching those behind you, younger than you, with fewer skills than you, how to do, because you are out of the do loop, if you will. So I don't fully agree with that. For example, in the Top Gun, and I'm using that as an example, but in the Top Gun championships and those sorts of things, there are extreme levels of specialization. And in the federal government or the cybersecurity field, those things still occur. There are extreme specialists, but very few of them. Again, higher and higher specialization, fewer and fewer people, and although they may earn absolutely stunning salaries, there's only a few of them left. So, you know, my suggestion, and this is just me, my suggestion is you keep that management path available to you and don't ignore it entirely when you're seeking out, I want to be the best, you know, intrusion detection system person that I can be. Keep that management option open. Get your PMP or your CISM, Certified Information Systems or Information Security Manager, so that you can move on if somebody needs you, and, you know, higher levels of pay, blah, blah, blah. You know, this is promotion potential 07. What does that mean? Well, that's senior executive service. Lead, motivate, and develop a staff of employees.
Danny,
you know?
Can you scroll up, please?
Up? Sure.
Scroll up just to the salary. The
salary. Okay.
Position information.
There it is.
It'll come up to me in a moment. Yep, NB07, 150. So this is not a GS1. This is a NB. Okay. Sorry. No. Just something
That's
I
all right. That's all right. NB07 with potential for promotion of NB07.
Of 07. It's a
you're going
standard.
To stay in that position, and all you're going to get is time in service, time in grade, promotions, but you can get hired in at a pretty high, you know, a nosebleed pay rate. You know? So go ahead.
Maybe my question here, and this is maybe a rhetorical question more than a discussion question. OPM about a few years ago went into hey, we need more cyber folks or people with knowledgeable cyber skills.
Right.
And the lessons were through Sans Institute and another contractor who taught the fundamental skills of technology / pen testing. Yet it seems to be the lean more is we need more managers. I'm curious to know if maybe and I'm trying to focus my question towards the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
The need of cybersecurity people is all over. And you look at the CyberSec map and it says cybersecurity engineer, which seems technical, but it could be managerial. maybe the end statement here, Scotty, is just to keep your doors open and to keep learning and see what's available. Look at what the market's asking.
Always. I fully agree with that. The question you have to ask yourself is, where are you looking? For example, I am not looking to learn more about Microsoft Exchange messaging systems. I have sort of reached my limit for Microsoft Exchange. I am now looking at unified communications in general, not specific to Microsoft, for example. For network systems, I'm not looking into Cisco certification in case my whole organization decides to go to some other network OS like Brocade or whatever, because then I have literally specialized myself out of that job market. So if you think about a particular name, an operating system or an information system, McAfee versus Norton versus Microsoft, that's where you get down to the level of specialization. Am I learning about McAfee anymore? No. I find, if I'm going to be doing something, I find somebody who knows about McAfee and can tell me what I need to know. I don't go take a McAfee class. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm just wondering if specializing yourself too much is the wrong thing to. It's almost like a balance kind of situation.
It is.
There's a part of me that sits there and says, hey, my job wants to learn ServiceNow, for example, but I know ServiceNow is going to stovepipe me into ticket managing or asset managing in the end. Okay. No, sorry,
right.
Thinking out loud.
No, your point is well taken. This discussion should be constantly occurring in your head. For example, when I was offered this, IT portfolio management director, apply for this, I thought about it and I said, would this work for me? What would I have to polish up in order to consider myself to be a better candidate for this position? Sure, you always think about that. You should always think about that. But if something popped up and they said, we're looking for an exchange engineer, doesn't even apply to me, So, do I specialize? No. Do I generalize? Yes. But then I still have to, how do I say this? I still have to specialize within my area of generalization.
Another thing of consideration, and I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, but I'm going to be the Debbie Downer here.
Okay.
The family aspect of what you're taking. When you're in these upper levels like that, you're probably going to be the breadwinner of the family, or you're going to be a significant portion of the family budget.
Right.
Okay, I'm not the breadwinner, but I'm a significant portion of the family budget.
Sure. Sure. And that is I'm sorry, go ahead.
Me jumping to the private sector when these federal benefits, even at the GS-12 level, is sweet, and I'm probably thinking the best benefits ever in the nation. I don't think I can find a match to what the federal government offers in benefits. I sit there and say the benefits are nice. I look at the end of the 12. Let's say I decide to stay, and I look at the end of the 12, and I look at my last 5 after that. Do I sit there and say I'm quite happy with retiring with that? It's almost like a no pressure situation, but at the same time, you don't want to be stale and be. That's the dilemma I'm facing right now. Is I like what I'm doing. I know about upward mobility, but me moving to the private sector is just going to financially kill my family.
Well, curious that you mentioned that, Chris, because I had that conversation a long time ago. I was a GS-12 in 1999, and I had somebody literally call me from out in contractor land and say, "Hey, Scotty, we've got a job for you." And I said, "Well, you know, I'm in civil service." And he said, "Well, yes, but this is a job that was designed literally with you in mind." And I said, "Okay, but I mean, honestly, I'm already making GS-12 wages. What can you offer me?" And the guy said, "Well, just come take a look. Come take a look." And literally, I was a GS-12 in 1999. At the time this occurred, the issue is I was frustrated with my current GS-12 job because I couldn't get promoted. The position that I wanted, we had this conversation, the position I wanted, there were like 40 people between me and that position, and I would walk past their cubicles and they would be asleep in their cubicles. So I was incredibly frustrated sitting in my cubicle going, huh, you know, and they said, you know, this is a job that you would enjoy. We're going to give you a healthy pay raise, you know, and it's working down the hall from where you're working right now, and it's going to be a lot more fun. And so I took the jump. That was 20 plus years ago, and only just now have I come back into the federal government after my 20-year stint. I will tell you, it's been a roller coaster ride, but it has been extremely fulfilling. Being in the private sector as a contractor and having to fight for my jobs every single year, guess what? It paid more than enough for me to keep considering that, but there was very little in the way of retirement, and every couple years I had to reinvent myself and compare myself to everybody else in the career field because my employers were doing the same thing. So I got tired of that portion of it and came back to the security of the federal government and the fact that I had 20 plus years of federal time that could be used toward a retirement. So I came back. But what I did by doing so, I literally had to take a pay cut to come back into the federal government. So it's an ongoing conversation you have to have. But it's funny that you mentioned that, Chris, because I actually had that conversation as a GS-12. And when it occurred, I will tell you, I was talking to the guy and I said, well, you know, I make $58,000 a year. How can you compete with that? Because that's what a GS-12 made in 1999. I was a step 1 or step 2, and I thought I was the bee's knees. So, yeah, you have to have that conversation all the time. Good example. Thank you for bringing that up, Chris. That was ancient history for me, but it proves a point.
That's the thought process I'm going through. Is my wife and I are doing other financial goals. For example, getting out of a rental situation and moving into a buying situation of the house. Yep. So, making big jumps away from what my wife would consider financial stability would probably not be the wisest move in the world on my part. But that doesn't say I go ahead and see what's out there in the federal market. And USA Jobs is not the only website that offers federal jobs. That's the other part too.
Right.
The agency that won't be mentioned has a federal job.
Yep. So to get back to one conversation that we had numerous times, volunteer work. This is for a senior executive service position. and it says your volunteer work or part-time work applies for overall experience, even at the senior executive service level. That's why you should be on the board of directors of your church, or board of directors of your homeowners association, or board of directors of your scouting group, or whatever. Masters. All that time applies. You know? Just a thought. Just a thought. Anyway, that's all I had for today, guys. Did you guys have anything?
Good chat, Scotty. Thank you.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this one. Okay, if you guys don't have anything more, we will stop the recording.